Hey everybody, Tag, Life Done Free. Hey, I thought today we could visit a little bit about the fractional reserve system, the digital dollar, the recent bank collapse, and I thought I'd just kind of walk through how a bank works and why I always say that money is the land of make believe. So if you're interested, come on, let's check it out. Hey everybody. So I was asked from some people on my channel to talk a little bit about the banks that were collapsing and the things that are going on around us in the financial system, and to talk about how it happens. And so I thought today I would take you through this little journey about banks and how they work. And I refer to it as the bank lie. So in the news lately, I know that you guys know this, but Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and Silvergate Bank are the recent collapses, that have happened recently, and it's been, all over the news. But for today's sake, I thought I would show you a little bit about how banks work and what fractional reserves are, because this is really the fundamental piece why you, the consumer, and me, the consumer, are going to get hosed in the end. And so the fractional reserve banking process creates money. And so this is really, really, really important that you remember those words, that it actually creates money, because I know you've been told in the past that the Federal Reserve creates money, right? Well, it does, but so does the fractional reserve banking process. And so this money is inserted into the economy. And so I'm going to give you a few different examples to really try to make it simple and make everybody understand how it works. So when you deposit, let's say $2,000 into a bank account at your local bank, the bank can loan, depending upon the law and the time, right, but can loan a percentage of that out to its customers, right? And so it does this whether it's, of the thousands of customers a bank has, that money that comes in, then they go and they take that money or a percentage of that money and they loan it out to the others. The money that they keep, that they don't loan out, right, is what's called the reserve. And this is your reserve, and this is what protects your bank account. So let's talk a little bit about fractional history real quick. And so the National Bank Act of 1863 required the banks keep 25% reserve. So that basically means that if you put $1,000 in the bank, they had to keep $250 of that in the bank to protect your assets and to protect your bank account. Well, then the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and then that number moved from 7%, between 7% and 13%, really just depending on what type of account it was. In the 1950s and even into the 60s, that number hovered between 8 and 10%, again, depending upon what type of account. And guys, if you dig into the history of this, you'll find that there were some accounts, that would require a little more or a little less. But this is a general rule. It was 8 to 10%. But something really amazing happened in March 26th of 2020. And you probably don't even remember this happening, but they moved the reserve to zero. So what this basically means to you and how this relates to you is they don't have to keep any of your money. So you put $1,000 in the bank, they can loan out all 1,000, right? And so what happens then, when you want your money? And I think it's also interesting that all of this news happened on March 26th of 2020. Can anybody else remember what was going on at that time? I'm having a real hard time remembering. But it was interesting as I was going through, researching and getting all the digits and stuff for this video, I couldn't find almost any articles that pointed to them removing the fractional reserve down to zero. It was buried way deep. Everything was COVID this and COVID that. But that's for another video. So let me take you through some examples, right? So here's an example of how the fractional reserve system, which is what your bank uses, right, works. So let's say you deposit $1,000 in a bank account. And so now the assets of the bank, or the system of the bank, has $1,000. Follow me so far? Okay. So you decide that the bank can lend 90%. And I use that word on purpose because you decided this. When you signed up for the account, if you read the fine print, what it said is that you're authorizing them to loan your money out. So you decide that the bank can do this and that they can lend 90%. But again, remember that it's now 100. But prior to that, it was, let's just say it was 90%. So the bank then can lend 900 of your $1,000. So a customer comes in, borrows the $900. Now you still have the $1,000 in your bank account, right? Okay, But now they've loaned that 900. That loan then becomes an asset, so the system now has 1900. You see how they just created money? Out of a $1,000 deposit, they now have $1,900. So then that customer who borrowed that money goes and takes that money and he spends it with whatever vendor he spends it with, which then that vendor goes deposited back into the account, back into the bank, right? And so the bank then can lend 90% of that 900, which is $810 of that new $900 deposit. So the customer can borrow $810, right? That's 90%. Now you still have the $1,000 in your account, and you still have the receipts of the first $900 loan, but now we have the receipts of the second $810 loan. So your $1,000 deposit has now created $2,710, and this is referred to as the money multiplier. I'm going to take you down a little bit different of a road in that I'm going to explain it, I think, even simpler so that people really get this point, because it's super important. So you guys know I like to use Joe Snuffy. This is my buddy Joe. And so let's say Joe deposits $10,000 into his savings account, and he's paid interest, of 1% into his account, so he made $100, right? So then the bank takes all of that $10,000, right? Because remember, there's no more reserve requirement, and then they loan it out. So the bank then is going to loan Linda all of Joe's $10,000, and Linda's going to pay the bank $700 in interest on that loan for that year. So Joe gets $100, the banks get $600. So isn't that interesting how they're using your money and they're getting the vast majority of it when they loan the money out? But now if you look at it, the bank has the assets of Joe's first $10,000, also the $100 that got deposited into his account, Linda's $10,000 that she borrowed actually from Joe, and then Linda's interest of $600. So now with just these two customers, the bank has $20,700 in assets. And again, it's just these two customers. And I know you know and I know that the bank has far more customers than two. So Linda took this loan out, this $10,000 as an operating capital for her small business in this case. But she could have went and spent it with vendors because it would work the same. Then the vendor would just deposit it. But she deposits the $10,000 back into the bank so that she has an operating balance, or the vendors deposit it, either way. But the bank now adds this to their balance sheet, increasing their assets by $10,000. So the bank assets with just these two customers is $30,700. But wait, there's more. So now Billy, he's got to go to the bank because, he wants to buy a boat. Anyway, so he takes a $10,000 loan out, and the bank lends Billy Linda's $10,000 that was originally Joe's $10,000, to which then Billy pays the $700 in interest just like Linda did. And the bank assets have now grown to $41,400 within three customers. Okay? Make sense? This is what's called fractional reserves. This is what happens every day to thousands of customers. The question is for poor Joe. So what happens when Joe wants his money? Right? No worries. He'll go into the bank and they'll get it from Linda or Billy, right? You see the problem? Imagine all of the customers all went to the bank, right? What if these were all Joe Snuffies and they all wanted their money? Could they get it? See, this is what's referred to as a bank run. And you look at the people on the front of all, the line of all of these people go into the bank, they might get some of their money back. But that poor guy in the red shirt down there at the bottom, he's going to absolutely get hosed, right? Because there just simply isn't enough money. Have any of you guys ever ran into a bank, and I know you have, this is a silly question, and said, hey, I want to take out $5,000 or I want to take out $10,000. How many questions you get? B and I recently went into the bank to take some money out and got all kinds of questions. What do you need it for? I'm like, because it's mine. That's why I need it. Well, we don't have it. What do you mean you don't have it? We're going to have to get it. We'll go get it. And, we waited 45 minutes to, receive our funds that were our money, right? So imagine a world, right, that there was no cash, because this would make life a lot easier for the bankers and certainly a lot easier for the system. Enter now the digital dollar, right? Because if you insert the digital dollar and if you outlaw currency, right, or paper money, then it will never be a problem, right? Because all it is an entry onto a computer, right? Joe would simply log in and his money would be there. And Joe is happy and Linda happy and Billy's happy and the bank's happy. What could possibly go wrong, right? And guys, we're living this today. How many bills do you pay online? Right? It's just an entry from one point to another point. And remember, it all stemmed back from that original $10,000. I tell you guys all the time that money's the land of make-believe, right? When you couple this with the way they tax us, with all of those things, and again, that's for another video, but it truly is the land of make-believe. So let's look at some headlines from just recently, and these are the ones I just took off my computer today just to show you guys that this is coming, and they've found a way to fix these bank runs which are going on right now today. So here are some headlines. So Forbes said just one day ago, whether private or public, the U.S. needs a digital dollar. Right? The Silicon Valley Bank collapse meant protecting the digital dollar from the banking system. Guys, listen to what they said right there. SVB collapse meant protecting a digital dollar from the banking system. Do you guys remember when Richard Nixon said that he was removing the United States off the gold standard to protect it from the speculators? They're telling you guys, here's the playbook. It's right here in front of us. This was an article that was just posted 2 days ago. They're going to protect the digital dollar, right, from the banking system. The U.S. Treasury says it's getting the digital dollar technology ready, and they've been getting it ready for many years. The final one, a congressman warns that the digital dollar could expand financial controls over Americans. Well, how can this be, right? This will just be a good thing. Everybody's money would be there and everybody would be protected, right? So here's the problem, guys, is they created this fractional system, right? Then they broke the system, which is what they're doing now, right? They moved those fractional reserves down, 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 until there's no protection there at all. And so the system is breaking. So now they've created the fix. Just like Richard Nixon said, hey, I'm going to protect the country from the speculators by removing the dollar off the gold standard. They're now going to protect the digital dollar from the banks. They've created the fix in this digital dollar, and now they will have total control of what you earn, of what you buy, and of what you can afford. Don't forget, all hail the Republic, because at the end of the day,